Thank you for joining our discussion, Jeff.
Thank you, Dan. Glad to be here.
I've got a feeling one of the reasons why rail isn't as forthcoming, at least from our perspective, on this is that they don't necessarily want to have, the exposure or being tapped into, for things that they're not comfortable with, that they're being drawn in, away from what their primary work is. And I respect that entirely. But what I'm thinking is that if we could turn around and get representatives from fire, from law, I mean, the traditional first responders, public works involved with it as well, and just start a conversation with, hey, look, these are the assets that may need to be moved around, and then just present that to rail, and then let rail think about it as an industry.
It's tangible instead of just, well, what do they want to talk about?
What we're worried about is being able to move fire equipment, from this location to this. We're not talking about necessarily street rigs. Well, I take that back. When you're talking about, I'm thinking of wildland interface fires initially. So yeah, you're talking about, field rigs that you'd be able to move around via rail. But I can also picture situations, that would be regional where you might have to move, street engines as well. I'm talking about, from one fire department over to another to reinforce if you're dealing with a regional emergency.
Yeah, one
Yeah.
challenge, of course, is we use the term circus loading. You're familiar with wagons being backed up and rolled onto flat cars.
Yeah.
That's few and far between now because intermodal now has elaborate cranes and vehicles like that. So getting the fire apparatus on a rail car might be there may
Problematic.
have to be some provision to build something to take them on and take them off, which doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, no, most of them are set up to handle shipping containers, unfortunately.
Well, that's
Yeah.
certainly not a problem. We've got all kinds of ports. Just to switch gears for a moment, after 9/11, we didn't sit around and wait to think about what we should do. I have to point to my former boss who's retired now. We stood up a series of, we call them critical action teams, to investigate the issue. I worked on one, for example, that examined um, the shipment of a rail car from origin to destination, all the steps it goes through, so that we could identify the critical steps, identify potential vulnerabilities, design countermeasures to combat them, and so on, which we did. We even came up with risk, steps to take at different elevated threat levels and so on.
Mm.
This is before TSA existed. And when TSA existed, they of course wanted to dictate, and we had to kind of say, now hold the phone here. Why don't you look at what we did? And we were successful in, continuing on with much of our stuff.